Time again, everybody. Happy Thursday. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of TheNexGen Live. I'm Rory Sauter. Joining me is George Landreth. We have Jim Ostrowski, Greg Merck, Brian Perez, Bill Muckler. Everybody, a lot going on tonight. Big show. A lot to address, a lot to establish. Headline after headline. Quite the week so far. Where do we start? Jim, I want to go to you first.
I'm drawing a blank. What's going on these days? War everywhere. I heard an interesting story. I think it was on Bannon that the reason why the stock market is up is they think Trump's going to win, which is pretty funny. I monitor Morning Joe, and they're in full panic mode every morning. Every day it's a different thing. The other day they said the reason why the culture has declined and there's this coarseness and vulgarity and disrespect for women and everything else and disrespect for minorities is, guess what? Donald Trump caused it all. So I'm sort of monitoring that. I'm doing a lot of research into the right to bear arms and stuff like that, but still practicing law. So I'm probably not as up on what's going on as the rest of the panel, so I'll defer.
Right. George, I want to go to you.
Fair enough. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's lots going on. Like he was saying, it's hard to know where to start. But
start with the border, George.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. The border is kind of an interesting issue, just because you've got this, crazy 5-4 decision from the Supreme Court, which I think clearly ignores what I would call, what's referred to as the invasion clause. It's found in Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, and it says that no state can enter into agreement or compacts with other states or engage in war unless actually invaded, or if they're in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. And I'm thinking to myself, so that pretty much qualifies what's going on our southern border. This constitutional provision shows that our founders and our founding documents acknowledged that individual states are sovereign and they retain an inherent power to protect their territory. And it doesn't have to be a military invasion with tanks and military columns for the state to act in self-defense. And yet the Supreme Court ignored all this, and and then Joe Biden's acting like, I think he understands, he's read the polls, and he said to himself, yeah, I got some troubles here. So now he's going to pretend, and the media, of course, will support him in this, that the problem at the border is because Congress won't pass the legislation that he needs to secure the border.
And you know what that is? Amnesty. They want to give amnesty.
Yeah, and that's just a big lie, of course. I mean, that's not what the problem at the border that we have been seeing for the last 3 years is 100% and solely the byproduct of Joe Biden's policies and his administration's policies. The Republicans had nothing to do with it, and they've actually passed legislation that would close the border and fix things, but he's ignoring them and won't. The Democrats in the Senate won't pass it, and so now he's just trying to pretend that he's not to blame. And so part of me says the Republicans would be stupid to engage in any sort of compromise with him, because his sole goal in that compromise is to say, see, I needed for them to do something. And he's not going to do anything. I mean, he'll do what he might have to do to appear like he's doing something for purpose of the election. But the reality is, this is the same guy who's brought in more than 15 to 20 million, once you include the gotaways. It might be much higher than that. Known terrorists, thousands of them, known special operators, known criminals, etc., that he's been letting in. And we're supposed to be like, oh yeah, if only the Republicans would compromise with them, we could solve this problem. That's just a damnable lie. That's just absurd. And it's just a political attempt for him to evade responsibility for his unconstitutional and irresponsible actions. So I'm a little worried because I feel like Republicans often, they'll say, "Oh, well, we don't want the press to hate us," and it's like, guys, they're going to hate you no matter what. So just do the right thing. But we'll
Right.
see what happens.
And speaking of the border, the Senate border deal negotiated by Rhino, Senator Langford, actually makes the problem worse. It writes into law that almost 2 million fake refugees per year will cross the border. It also fully funds Biden's ability to fund their free hotels, free food, free phones, and welfare benefits for millions of fake refugees, which I find very problematic. I've been saying for a while that Langford is the worst of the worst. He's horrible, and he's the one leading the charge for the immigration talk. And this is the kind of results we get. I mean, this isn't legitimate. This isn't sufficient. This is not sustainable. These people are jokes. This is horrible.
Yeah. They're ballless. They have no balls. They're sellouts. They've been paid off, and it's a way of destroying our republic. It's about destroying what our American family values. They want slave type cheap labor. They want votes for the rest of their lives. They want to create this real rich and real poor, own nothing and be happy, and just destroy it's destruction of a company. You don't see this type of immigration in any other country in the world. And
do Republicans actually want to fix the issue, or do they want more talking points and things to run on?
They want more talking points and things to run on in a way to fundraise.
Right. I mean, think about all the money they can make if they keep these talking points alive. I mean, do I think there's good ones in there that want to do something about it? Absolutely. But do the majority of politicians want to do something about it? No. They'd rather enrich themselves, do these fundraisers, and continue to give these speeches where they can capitalize and prey on the naive and gullible. We've been seeing it for as long as I can ever remember. Yeah.
I have a buddy that's Border Patrol in Arizona, and he says exactly what you said. They get the benefits, the housing. There's veterans who've been kicked out of hotels and given to illegal immigrants, and it's just disgusting. It's sick. Border Patrol said they want President Trump's Border Patrol policy from when he was president. It was working, and we just need to be able to enforce laws. Remove all illegal immigrants. If you've overstayed visas, you're gone too.
Yeah. Bill, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the reason why they don't want Trump back in again, because Trump can go immediately back to his policies, which changes everything back again. So I guess that's what we need to do. I've been kind of looking this week at I've been going over a chapter in my book on the judicial system. So I see I got two attorneys here. So I don't want, guys, I'm George and Jim. I'm not trying to steal your thunder or anything. I'm talking mostly about the history of the court and the structure of the court, so people really understand what this is all about and how the Constitution empowers the various branches of the government and so forth. And in doing that, I really, as far as civil cases are concerned, I've been watching this thing with this E. Jean Carroll. And I know that's probably not very important. It's probably not on everybody's radar. But I think it's really a distraction for Trump that's going to really kind of drag some things out for him. And I think the Democrats will probably try to use that as a big talking point later on when it comes time for the general election that, Trump, as bad as he is, like Jim said, he's bad. Everything that's bad about America is because of Trump. And so Trump hates women. Trump's all in favor of raping women, assaulting women, and so forth. But then the more I look into it, and I don't know if I can really verify a lot of this, but apparently this E. Jean Carroll has made assaults on her body a cottage industry for herself. And that she's gone to court maybe 5, 6, 7 times I'm trying to think of the right word. I guess alleged perpetrators or whatever. And so, does anybody understand this? This happened close to what, 25, 30 years ago? Why is all of a sudden on an election year of 2024, when they got to get rid of Trump, is this case in court? Why would, if it was so important, it was so egregious, why didn't it happen 1995 instead of 2024? That's something
He wasn't president then.
And, and you brought up the
They
whole.
passed a special law, probably to get Trump to get around the statute of limitations.
Well, Jim, haven't there been other cases in the past where people come forward years later and there is legs to the matter? I mean, there,
Not in my opinion. I believe that to have to defend something from I think it was 1994, is absurd, because you can't reconstruct. If it happened like 6 months ago, Trump would be able to these days determine exactly where he was. He'd have an alibi. I think the whole Carroll verdict is much more significant than an attempt to damage Donald Trump so he doesn't get reelected for president. I think it's an example of the fallacy that the government is capable of doing justice. I know it's a radical view. Well, what a shock for me to express something like that. I personally, as a lawyer for 40 years and for 17 years before I was a lawyer, my father was a judge. I grew up in this system. I don't see any evidence for the notion that the government is any better at producing justice than it's good at producing anything else. So I think this, if you go back to the 2 impeachments, the 4 criminal, the 3 civil actions against Trump, this isn't an outlier. This isn't like, oh, we have a great civil and criminal justice system, except for these 8 Trump proceedings. No, our criminal justice system sucks because the government sucks. And this notion that the government can do justice is just one of the greatest myths of all time. It's like the notion that the Republican Party is going to shrink the government. It's just one of these myths that it's a comforting belief. It's not a fact. It's a prayer. I've written about this. I'm going to write a lot more about it. But in my book, Political Class Dismissed, I challenge this notion that, why does anybody think the government's capable of producing justice? I think we should assume that it's not. The government's good at grabbing territory, using men with guns to defeat other men with guns, and then to hang on to that territory in the face of all comers. That's what the government's fucking good at. And the government's really good at taxing people to sustain its activities. What expertise does it have, for example, in medicine, lockdown, COVID, vaccines? Hello? So what evidence is there that the government is capable of producing justice? So I don't want to go on for an hour. I could, but I don't view the Trump farce as plural farces. The 4 criminal, the 3 civil, the 2 impeachments, and then I'm probably the ballot stuff too. It's all a farce. But I don't think this is an outlier. I don't think this is the system going awry. The system is always awry, and that's my belief. I'm sticking to it.
And you brought up the statute of limitations.
Yeah, well, that was just. There's a statute of limitations.
But look at all the cases with like celebrities and stuff and all those matters. So it's not just Trump. It's happening to quite a few people.
Well, in New York State, I can't speak to other states. In New York State, they changed the statute of limitations primarily because the trial lawyers, well, here's what happens. So the trial lawyers hire public relations firms. The public relations firms went in and did all these stories about alleged people who allegedly were abused by Catholic priests. Some of them undoubtedly were, some of them probably weren't, and some of them most likely were exaggerated, but some of them definitely were abused. So the trial lawyers lobbied for these changes in the statute of limitations. They got it. And then they went in for the kill and just made, millions and millions of dollars. So that's how this stuff works. It's kind of all about the Benjamins. But New York State is now a completely left progressive Democratic state. The Republicans have no power at any level of government. So somebody probably said, hey, we can get Trump, and they passed an adult. The law I was talking about was for kids, which you could maybe justify that. But this was like an adult, extension of the statute of limitations, and that's how they got Trump defending a case that I think it was from 1994. The jury, the notion that Trump's going to get a fair trial in Manhattan is ridiculous. The judiciary down there is extremely politicized, as it is really in the entire country. But in a completely democratic area, every appellate judge in New York was appointed by a Democratic governor, and most of the trial judges are Democrats, although there are judicial districts that still elect some Republicans. But it's a completely left Democratic judiciary. The law schools are dominated by the left. It's worse now than it was even when I went to law school. There were 2 libertarians in the at Brooklyn Law School. I was one of them. There was maybe 5 conservatives, and everybody else was a progressive or a leftist. So
and attorneys run our government. There's a lot of
it's pretty dire and hopeless, in all honesty.
Greg.
Well, a lot to unpackage there. I think, first of all, with respect to what the government can do, the government can do whatever they want. The issue is not to say that what the government can't do, because they can do it, they just choose not to, which only emphasizes the importance of local governments and working from the grassroots and in your communities on up, because certainly Washington, D.C. is not going to change. It's never going to change unless you change your own backyard. So, what the government and all those things you listed that Jim listed are not the role of the government. So the government is not to get involved in medicine and COVIDs and determinations of that's not the responsibility of the federal government. So the federal government has definitely gone outside the bounds of its constitutional authority, which is a problem that needs to be reined in. But the fact is, it's probably never going to get reined in. And as far as the border is concerned, all of the talk about it is just rhetoric. I mean, everybody knows what Biden is saying is an absolute lie. Everybody knows that what Mayorkas is doing is intentional in this administration. We all know it. We all know the perils of it, but it just doesn't matter, because the only thing that could change it in the here and now is if Congress shut down government in exchange for closing the border completely. And we know that's not going to happen. And then the second thing is that we're just going to have to wait for a new president, and hopefully one that would be tough on the border. And if that's Trump, then, we have to hope for President Trump. All the rest is just talk. I mean, these just talking points that everybody knows. Nobody's mind is changing. The left believes what the left believes, and the right believes what the right believes. Everybody knows that this border is an unmitigated disaster. But that is the intent. You're talking about, a Democrat Party, a Marxist establishment that wants this intentionally, and not just for votes. That's the obvious. That's the low-hanging fruit. That 12-year-old knows that. But it's the gross and unstoppable expansion of the federal government. That is what this open border is going. That is the irreversible damage. When you talk about Democrat votes, there's a possibility. There's a possibility that you can change that. You can win them over, albeit maybe it's slim, but you do have a chance to change these. The idea that these are going to be permanent Democrat voters. Maybe it's a chance in a million, but what is a zero chance? is when the federal government expands 34, 44, 54, 64 trillion dollars. What is impossible is ever turning that around. It's never going to happen. That is the long-term demise of this country. That is what has destroyed American exceptionalism already, and it's only going to accelerate in the future. So, I mean, what the government can do, they can do whatever they want. They just choose not to. But the real long-term irreversible damage of the unmitigated disaster at the border is the gross expansion of the federal government that will just accelerate America into financial oblivion.
Yeah, it's true.
It's a doom and gloom scenario, but that's the reality. And with the economy, you just look at the economy, and I'm starting to see, what we've been talking about for a long time. And for me, ever since last March, when they came up with this emergency loan program for the regional banks that were struggling, it was putting a Band-Aid on a giant gash of a wound. And now it's coming to roost. These banks that borrowed all that money and pledged their U.S. Treasuries as collateral, they don't have the money to pay those loans back. They were 12 months loan. And they're coming due in March and in April and May and whenever they took them, 12-month loans. They're coming due. These banks don't have the money. Not only that, but the property, the commercial real estate that they're holding on their books is, worth another 20, 30, 40% less. I mean, they're upside down in trillions of dollars in commercial real estate. The banks are in trouble, and we're going to start to see it percolate toward the end of this month and into March, when we're going to start finding out if these banks are paying that loan back. What I can't predict is what the Federal Reserve is going to do to put another Band-Aid over it to kick the can down the road. This is an election year, so I'm sure they're going to pull out all stops. But all it does is prolong the demise of the dollar, the demise of the American economy, and the demise of the American middle class.
That's right on, Greg, man. The regional banks are collapsing.
And Greg, we saw after 2008, I mean, we never obviously fully recovered. I mean, there were things that never went back to normal. It obviously got things, got a little better. But like I said, nothing ever fully recovered. And it took quite a bit of time just to get back. I would say 3 to 4 years it took until things were, or maybe longer. But for those first couple of years after 2008, it was horrible. It was awful. I mean, so I can only imagine the devastation and the tragedy and the aftermath and how long it's going to take this time around when things.
Well, what the government did in 2008 was create more regulations that, again, it deferred responsibility and really abdicated responsibility from individuals to the government. And how does the government oversight? How does the government run banks? They cannot. So they created a bigger problem. So they just kind of covered up the problem, and they blew up $4 to $5 trillion in the Federal Reserve on their balance sheet. From $600 billion to $4.5 trillion. They just masked the problem. They did not, and they do not, and they will not ever allow the free markets to solve the problems. And when the markets start to collapse, when industries start to collapse, the free market solution is let them collapse and let people come in and buy things 10 cents on a dollar and hire more people. They can become profitable again. That's what we are sadly no longer a free market capitalist society. We are not. Anybody that thinks we are is just kidding themselves. They're just kidding themselves. The government is in every aspect of our lives and our economy and our businesses. And the reason why we have a bigger financial problem today is because every time the government uses a multi-billion and then in 2008 a $900 billion solution, it's just going to create a bigger problem. And then it was now in the trillions of trillions of dollars in solutions. So every time they blew that bubble really up even bigger, things never really got better. They just masked it with government money. The 3.3% GDP we saw last year is all 75% of that is government money. We have an economy that is fake. It's built on massive Keynesian economic policy, government spending, and massive monetization by the Federal Reserve. We have a complete, utter facade, and all of these people that are clapping because of real estate or because the stock market is doing well are just deluding themselves. Right. And what you said there, I think it was a Trump, maybe been a.
And the stock market is such a fluke, and it's so phony it's being dominated by like 7 big companies, and a lot of other stocks, most other stocks, are not doing too well. So
No, well, absolutely. If you look at the S&P 500, a handful of companies, the big 7. But when you
right,
look at the non-weighted average, it's down. But the stock market doesn't measure the middle class people. They know middle class knows what's going on,
right,
and the reality is people are hurting. The economy's hurting. Manufacturing has been in a negative, it's been in a retraction for 18 of the last 20 months. So we're already in a recession. Just the government just keeps throwing money on the fire and keeping it fire burning. But I'll tell you, I don't know if it was Trump who made the tweet. The stock market is pricing in his return, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, if he said that's just utter nonsense. The stock market is pricing in, period, dot, end of story, the idea that the Federal Reserve is going to lower interest rates. It's not about, sorry, Mr. Trump, it's not about you at all. It's about the idea that the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates. And how do I know that? Because just yesterday, when Federal Reserve Jerome Powell started talking hawkish, then the markets plummeted, because he started saying there's not going to be a rate cut in March. They were anticipating that. So the markets are reacting to Jerome Powell and whether or not he's going to cut rates or leave them the same. That has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'll tell you, looking at Jerome Powell and his body language, you can tell that he's nervous. There's fear in his eyes. I don't think this guy really wants to deliver the actual news, the reality of things, Mark. But he deep down, he knows what's going on. He knows that we're fucked. He knows that we're fucked.
Maybe he for sure doesn't want to say. He has to say the exact right words because he knows the markets move on his words. So there's for sure that. But his competency, I can't. I'm not confident that he is competent. I just am not. I would hope that he is. He's highly educated, a Georgetown lawyer. I don't know what he knows about the banking system. He's like a big government bureaucrat that's been appointed by a president, and his job right now is based on Joe Biden staying in power. So I don't really believe anything that the guy says, but it doesn't matter because people have to do their own homework, and the writing is on the wall. And, the stock market may react in late October if they expect Trump is going to get. That could be a time when the stock market reacts to Trump. But as far as right now, I mean, Trump isn't even in the picture as far as the markets are concerned. It's all 100% Jerome Powell.
Right. Every time Jerome Powell talks, I see this guy and he's sweating and he gets red in the face. I wonder if he's all right.
Definitely not.
Like I said, it seems like nerves or fear. But maybe he has health issues. I don't know. But he's like red. He's sweating. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe this guy knows he's lying, and he gets nervous when he lies.
Right. That's the first thing I came to. Maybe it's nerves.
His butthole gets tight.
Huh?
Sorry. Yeah, no, he just gets tightened up. Like Greg said it. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts on this economic talk?
I mean, Merck said it right. I'm in the same boat.
What do we think about the war overseas, guys? George, I want to start with you on the war. The Houthis.
I was going to ask which one when you said the war. Unfortunately,
that's a good point, George. We're in about 100 million different wars right now. It seems like, and I think we're going to get into probably a few more. I don't think we're done quite yet. I think the Middle East, obviously, is a new one that we're getting into. But obviously, we've been in the Middle East for a while. But you know what I mean. During the Biden administration, this is a new war that he's getting us into. But I don't think, like I said, I don't think this is the end. I don't think we're done. I think more countries are going to try various things. I think there's certain leaders that want to test the waters.
Well, I think China is one of them, quite frankly. But the one you're referring to in the Middle East with an Iran surrogate group that was funded and trained and supplied by the mullahs in Iran. And quite frankly, that person who was, the mullahs in Iran are getting funding from Biden. So that means Biden's been funding indirectly this surrogate group, the Islamic Resistance, and they launched a drone attack on American soldiers that wounded more than 40 and killed
3, right? Yeah.
Pardon me?
I said killed 3, right?
Killed 3 and wounded more than 40. And to put in perspective, this is the 166th attack on U.S. military installations in just the last 3 months. That's well more than one a day. And this is Joe Biden's every day says, "Oh, I don't want to escalate things. I don't want to escalate things." And by telling the world he's scared to death to escalate anything, all he's really telling the world is, "I am weak, I am feckless, and you can attack us, and there will be very limited costs for having done so." And while he has done some bombing of the Houthis, the Iranians don't care about that. He could kill every last Houthi on the planet, and they wouldn't care. That's why they have surrogates. It's so that you have some level of separation, so that if there isn't a retaliation, you don't pay the price. And so unless we're willing to impose a price on Iran, for example, the way Trump did when he got Soleimani, or the way Reagan did when he essentially destroyed what was left, what little part of their navy there was. But these sorts of attacks sent the message of, don't mess with us. It won't end well for you. Instead, we have a president who basically says, we're afraid to mess with you because we think it won't end well for us. And so all he does is encourage. It's like walking out into the middle of a neighborhood where a gang is in charge, and basically telling them, A, I've got lots of money in my pocket, and B, I'm scared to death and I'm not armed. I hope nothing bad happens. Guess what? Something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
That's Joe Biden.
It's a very troubling foreign policy when you say you don't want escalation, because there's only one way to ensure you don't have escalation. That's overwhelming, deliberate force. And it has to be decisive. That's the only way you keep things from escalating, because this measured response is only, especially when it's measured by Barack Obama and Valerie Jarrett, they're the ones measuring the response. When you have this kind of pathetic measured response, that's why we have 166 and counting. If they don't want escalation, it's going to require overwhelming, deliberate force and sending a message just like Donald Trump. But again, all rhetoric, because real warfighters know this and understand that. But this administration has a mission, and that mission is to arm Iran with nuclear weapons. That's the Obama Valerie Jarrett policy, and they're going to keep on pushing it until they get their wish.
Yep. And then they're trying to create civil war too as well.
Bill.
Not sure where to go with this next, but the Houthis, like Greg said, the Iranians don't care what happens to them, because what they can we can bomb them and missile them and knock them out. They keep making more and more, and the younger they come along or whatever, they've got plenty of manpower that they can throw into the pipeline to continue these never-ending wars that started back in the year 634, and it's about 1,400 years ago. So they're not going to stop this. But when we talk about others trying to test the waters in there, I think it's Iran is, they're the Shiites. The rest of them, the Saudis, and so forth. Well, I guess the Syrians are Shiites too, but they're not going to do anything. The rest of them are all Sunnis. I don't think that Egypt or Jordan or Saudi or any of the Emirates or any of them want to start anything against the United States. I think they would more try to align themselves against the Iranians with, the enemy, my enemy is my enemy type of thing. So, but we're really in a perilous position with Trump. I think it'll all be abated. But if Biden, we still got 10 more months before the election, and
it's a long
11 more months before we have a regime change. So I don't know what's going to happen. It's I'm just fearful for what's going to happen to our young men and women. Every Friday I do my show, I talk about Red Friday. Remember everyone deployed. Yeah. Now I'm talking about, hey, they say, well, we lost 3. Well, what about the 2 Navy SEALs we lost? That's 5. And we don't know who else is in jeopardy or in danger over there, because I'm sure, and Greg probably knows this more than I do. I'm sure we got special operators in a lot of these places that nobody's talking about, even in North Africa and the Middle East.
And Bill, I question and I wonder, if we'll have another draft with all the wars we're getting into, with all the decline in military, with people not joining as much, them needing help, all the help they can get. We're seeing more and more reports that it's not going in their favor in terms of numbers. I want to know your thoughts on that.
Okay, well, we still have the draft is still in place. The Selective Service Administration is still viable. They're still in place, and everybody when they're 18 are obligated to register for the draft. Now, whether they do or not, I don't know. Right now, though, we've got more than 70% of our high school graduates, and this happens year after year, so it's an ongoing thing. More than 70% of our high school graduates are not eligible to join the military services because they're either they can't pass the physicals, or they're on drugs, they have criminal records, they don't have the academic standing, and so forth. So really, to have a draft, we would have to really lower the standards of who we want in the military. And I'm not so sure bringing in a lot of people in the military is the answer right now, because I don't see any of the wars that we would fight would be wars where we would need massive amounts of manpower. I think it's going to be more drones and people,
AI.
operating drones and special operators and so forth. The Marine Corps, MARSOC, Navy SEALs, Army, and Green Berets, or special operators and so forth. So I think I don't know that we really need to go to a draft, because I think the ones that we want in the service are the ones that are in that 25, 28% range, that are really well qualified, that want to be in there. And I think that's who we want defending our country.
But you're saying, Jim, with how advanced and evolved technology currently is, that's enough to not need a draft. But if we were 50, 60 years ago and technology wasn't at the level it's at right now, then we'd be talking about different circumstances.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not the same now. For example, China can't invade the United States. Well, they already have invaded the United States, but they're prosecuting a different type of war than what we're used to. They do not have the capability to land divisions of soldiers, land-based soldiers on American soil, because that would take lots and lots of ships and supplies and staging and everything. They don't have the ability to do that. There's no way they could do that. And if they did, we would have the ability with our submarine force to take out every ship that they have sailing across the eastern sailing east on the Pacific Ocean. So that's out of the question. And nobody else is big enough or strong enough to even invade American soil. So any wars that we fight are going to be on foreign soils, other than the ones that the cartels are prosecuting against us, and then the Chinese are with fentanyl and everything else that they're doing. We have to understand we're at war right now.
Yep.
The Chinese, the way they're hacking everything, they can shut down our power grid, our sewage plants, our water treatment plants, and everything. They're working on that, so they could shut us down and put us back 100 years in technology. There would be no technology if they really wanted to. And I don't know that we're addressing any of this. All we're talking about now is identity politics and virtual signaling and EVs and so forth. Hell, I rode EVs when I was going to school. They were called streetcars, and they ran on tracks. Now we're trying to run them by batteries made in China, and that ain't going to work either.
Right. Yeah, very well said. Jim, your thoughts on all this?
I heard something, and I can't remember who said it, but I thought it was, they brushed it off, and I thought it was very significant. This base that got attacked, is it true? Does anybody know that that's part of Trump's anti-ISIS operation? And I remember hearing at the time that Trump ordered that base closed, and Milley came in and overruled Trump. And the reason is so that
China can take over.
the deep state forces could go after Assad. Now, that whole Assad Syria thing is a mystery wrapped inside an enigma. I remember when that thing first started, the media said Assad is very unpopular. He's a war criminal. His people hate him, and he's going to be overthrown any week now. That was like 15 years ago, and I don't really believe anything about Assad. I'm not saying I like the guy. I'm just saying we've been lied to. But does anybody know? Because if that's true, then that's on, that could be an issue in the presidential campaign, that not only was Trump's order violated, if it was, but it was done for nefarious reasons to continue this ridiculous intervention into Syria. I wrote a book about this that nobody read, but my point is I know a little bit the Syrian intervention. It was stupid, had nothing to do with America first or anything involving our national interest. But if Trump ordered that base closed, that led to these not only 3 deaths, but a lot of injuries, as has been reported on the panel tonight, that could be an issue in the campaign. Why wasn't that base closed? And obviously, even if Biden wasn't involved in the decision to overrule Trump, it was Milley. Biden's been president for a long time and never closed that base. What the hell are we doing with a base in Jordan? It's so
I think I can answer why they say it's there. I'm not saying it's legitimate, Jim, but that base is there. It's sort of like on the corner of Jordan, Syria, and Iraq, and it's there to supply all the various other operations we have going on in that area, which are supposed to be guarding the supply line that Iran is sending to Syria and then to the Hezbollah and Hamas. So anyway, we're supposed to be interdicting the supply routes, and this one base there is a base that controls all of our supplies, our ammunition and food, clothing, everything that our people need. That's like a central depot, so to say. So that's why it's there. I'm not saying it's legitimate. I'm not saying that they're stopping any flow of materials and supplies and weapons from Iran, but apparently there's a route that they travel on from Iran to the sea, and that's why it's there.
I get it. I don't recognize the validity of any of those purposes at all.
I don't either, but I mean, I'm just
involved in Syria, Jordan, Iran, Israel, Gaza, you name it. I think the whole intervention since World War I has been an unmitigated disaster and continuing. But if Trump's order was violated, that should become an issue in the presidential campaign, and hopefully Trump's consultants, and I don't know who his consultants are. I'm not particularly impressed by them.
Yeah, he's still surrounded by the same jerk. He's still surrounded by the same jerk-offs that were horrible the first time around. So he really hasn't learned his lesson. He's still surrounding himself with rhinos, globalists, people that are now not out for the country's best interest. So that's a big problem.
Yes.
And it should make people angry. It should make people upset. It should make, like Jason Miller, his campaign manager, he's the ultimate scumbag. He's the worst of the worst, and Trump still has him around running operations. I do not understand Trump's mindset.
Well, you got to understand, who wants to be? Everybody that goes near him has a target on their back. So unfortunately, Trump does not.
But no, I don't agree with that assessment. I don't agree with
that.
I mean, I understand. No, I understand that's true, but I don't think that's a reason for him not to be able to get somebody better or somebody that's. Because there is somebody that would do that job, that has integrity, that is authentic, That is legitimate. That
Everybody on this panel would be able to do that job, Rory.
Yeah,
Anybody
okay.
on
Well,
this
go
panel
find
could
him in
do that.
Washington.
Go ahead.
Go find him in Washington. But I'll tell you, Tower 22 was an Obama throw-up. Remember Operation Inherent Resolve? Even the guys in named operations are pathetic. Who comes up with that name, Inherent Resolve? It just shows you the limp-wristed, light-loafered, pussy-ass administration, these pseudo-intellectual bureaucrats. They disgust me to the core in Operation Inherent Resolve. It just sounds sickening. It sounds like a snowflake, give me a safe space operation. Of course, that's Obama. But it was designed to stop ISIS for whatever Obama could do to prevent the resurgence of ISIS. But again, more sitting ducks of U.S. service members in the Middle East, and not necessary. It's not something we need to do, but we certainly shouldn't be doing it under the administration of Obama Biden again, because they're not capable. And as far as the draft is concerned, that's never going to be activated. Good luck with that. By the way, it's not academics qualifications because they already lowered those. You now don't even need a GED or a high school diploma to go in the military. So they have already lowered the standards pathetically low. But can you imagine? They activate the draft? These fat ass drug addict, tattoo laden losers. You think they're going to go? They're going to go to the streets and burn the cities down? They're going to make BLM and Antifa look like child's play. You tell these people they need to go in the military? Yeah, good luck with that. I don't want them on my watch, that's for sure.
Amen.
George, you have any thoughts?
Good job, Greg.
Well, no, I think there's lots of troubles here, and I think I agree with the point that unlike, say, during World War I, World War II, or even the Civil War, the size of your infantry in terms of having lots of, basically cannon fodder to throw at the other side was helpful. In today's world with technology, we actually, because I remember talking one time with Rumsfeld about this, he didn't want a draft because what he really wanted was well-trained, well-qualified people who were professionals who saw this as their calling in life and that were really highly motivated. And he pointed out the reason why American soldiers have historically been the best on the planet is not just because they have great equipment, but because they're highly motivated. And his point was a draft makes you less motivated and less trained. So, but the problem is, as I see it, when you tell the public, America's a racist nation, it sucks, it's inherently evil and so forth. Oh, and by the way, would you like to put your life on the line to defend it? No. So that's part of the problem is when they spend all their time telling us how evil America is, how our Constitution sucks, how our founders are bad people, and all this, that I think they're kind of stepping on their message. And then on top of that, if you think about it, how about General Milley? The greatest existential threat to the United States is the weather. So would you like to join the military so we can fight the weather? We need to defend our country against the weather. And it's like
to show you.
And the transgender stuff, gay stuff.
Yeah.
They don't even have the leadership. So Rumsfeld wants this, but Rumsfeld's gone, and you've got now Austin, Secretary Austin, the guy who's AWOL and still has his job. Explain that one. But you look at the academy, Air Force Academy cadets graduated, and if they refused the vax, they were fired and sent home. And they tried to get them to pay back, and because of the change, they wanted to make them pay back their education. So this is the government. You want to attract the brightest. The academies produce the brightest and the best in the officer corps. And they said, no, sorry, we don't want you because you can get back. So, not only do we not have it in these purple and pink-haired tubs of goo, and they would all be protesting whether they were eligible for the draft or not. 90% of them would be 4Fs. But not only would you have them protesting, but you've got a pathetic leadership in the flag officer corps. Just pathetic leadership. I mean, you're kicking people out because they didn't get the vaccine? Yeah, how good is that? You expect these people to manage our force structure? It's no wonder they're missing their quotas by tens of thousands every year.
Yeah, and no, I agree. Well said. George and Jim, I know you guys have to take off here in a few minutes, but I want to get to this whole legal matter with Elon Musk. I can't believe the judge is withholding $16 billion from him.
More than that.
This is a massive headline. He's taking his corporation, his business out of Delaware, moving it to Texas, and he's advising everybody do not open any sort of businesses in Delaware. But going back to this whole 16 billion, wow. You're talking about something that was agreed upon in a board meeting upon members, and you have a corrupt scumbag judge who can overturn that? Fill me in here. George, I want to start with you because I'm sure you looked at this and you're probably blown away.
Well, I am. I think the rule of law is on life support, if not already dead. I'm hoping we can resurrect it if it's dead. And if it's on life support, I hope we can revive it. But the reality is the law is no longer this. When I remember going to law school years ago, the purpose of learning the law was you would learn the law so that when someone gave you a fact pattern, you could apply the law and then tell them what it meant in their circumstances. That you can't do that anymore. Now it basically depends on, I need more context. I need to know what the politics are. I need to know what bumper stickers are on your car. I need to know who you support, who your friends are, stuff like that. It's crazy. We basically have, America has devolved into a third world banana republic thanks to the left. And as someone who
Both
went
parties,
to law school,
really.
pardon me?
Both parties, really.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps so, but the left is the one that's really pushing the envelope on this, and they're the ones who are trying to purposely destroy it. I think sometimes the right's been complicit, but I don't think they're the ones pushing in this direction because they want the political issues they want to use the courts, they want to use the legal system to achieve their political objectives. It used to be that you used elections to get your political objectives accomplished. Now, you don't need elections, just go to court. Get a judge to do it for you. And that's kind of the left's MO and so forth. So I'm very concerned, and I have to say to, Americans all across the continent here, the problem with democracy is you get the government you deserve. And that's something that Winston Churchill said. And I think America right now is getting exactly what it deserves because there's a significant proportion of the population that doesn't care about the Constitution, doesn't care about the rule of law, doesn't care about any of this crap. They just want to have their side win at whatever cost. And it really troubles me because it didn't used to be like that. And we've devolved into this kind of a thing. So either these people are going to have to wake up kind of like the Argentinians did and go, oh my gosh, this is horrible. We can't deal with this any longer. Or they're going to have to essentially accept living in a banana republic. But we've got to either get things turned around or we're going to continue the descent.
George, don't forget we're a republic.
No, I understand that. I know that we're a republic, but what Churchill meant is when the people vote and they vote on representatives, you get the government you deserve.
Yes,
Meaning,
correct.
Example would be California clearly deserves Gavin Newsom. I'm not saying that.
So you're saying Rory deserves Gavin Newsom?
I'm not saying that Rory deserves him. I'm saying collectively. Because I sure as heck don't deserve Joe Biden. But as a nation, we let this happen. Even if you accept the idea that there was voter chicanery and other things, we allowed that to happen. Yeah. As a population, we have basically let the idea of a constitutional republic slip through our fingers like water.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And we're paying the price. And that's our fault.
Yep.
Jim, what do you think about this matter with Elon Musk? Did you pay much attention to it?
I just heard the headlines again. I don't have much confidence in the judicial system. I actually dealt with Delaware courts on a ivermectin COVID matter. And I can't say they were overtly corrupt or bad. I believe we lost that particular case, but I thought they were a bit political on the left, pro-lockdown, anti-right to choose medication. So funny that I had a little bit of experience there. I do have to run. I'm working on amicus curiae brief for the January 6 people in the case that actually involves Trump. And I'm doing a little, I'm not the author of the brief. I'm actually one of the clients, but I'm doing some proofreading on the brief, and it's due tomorrow. It'd be an interesting thing to talk about, I think, after it's filed. But basically, what 20 seconds worth, they had plenty of statutes to charge whoever trespassed on January 6th or used any violence, but they used this rather obscure provision out of the Sarbanes-Oxley statute, which really wasn't designed to deal with that situation. And that's actually the subject of the appeal that involves, I think that's the main charge against Trump. So I'm working on that, and I'm gonna quit a little early tonight so I can get that thing in, and I hopefully see all you guys next week.
Well, kick some butt in that, man. God bless, and that's awesome.
Absolutely. And real quick, Jim, before you take off, and I want to ask George this too. Today was a big day on Capitol Hill. A lot of these big tech CEOs faced a lot of questions. I mean, I look at this stuff as political theater because nothing ever really gets done. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are good questions asked, but that doesn't really give us enough.
I'm glad you brought that up.
What do you guys make of it?
My view, I can't stand the way Congress brings people in, usually from the private sector, and treats them abominably. There's no due process. There's no right to respond. So that's my general reaction to these show trials. But anytime the government talks, look, the government wants to control the internet. I don't want the government to control the internet.
No.
And they're doing it for the sake of the children. We all know that, right? So anytime they're doing something for the benefit of the children, we have to just bow and scrape. I say, fuck that. I don't want the government involved in the internet, but that's my reaction to that. I got to go, guys. I'll see you all next week.
We'll talk to you soon. And tell everybody where they can find you.
Facebook. I'm actually on TikTok. Don't tell the anti-China people.
They already know.
I'm working on a thing called, it's kind of funny. I call it the LMO factoid. This little sheet here this is coming out tomorrow. I did a list of all the countries where there's ongoing civil conflict, and then I correlate it to the low rate of civilian gun ownership in those countries.
Right.
And then in the final column is how many times the gun control groups have talked about how great it is to be, for example, in Myanmar, which has no guns, which is what their goal is here. So I'm working on some of those things to bring some facts out. I'll talk about on the show next week.
Absolutely. And
thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, talk to you soon. George, what do you make of Capitol Hill today?
Well, Capitol Hill is often a circus.
In regards to the tech stuff.
I'd like to see them, do something that's substantive and matters. And again, I don't want government to be in charge of the internet. We need government to be in charge of the internet the same way we need government to have a ministry of truth. But at the same time, it would be interesting and nice to see government stop being cahoots with big tech. For example, we saw the Justice Department and other, the FBI, et cetera, working with big tech to silence conservatives and to silence people who weren't following the approved narrative. So I'd like to see that stop, and I'd like to see them get to the bottom of that, and I'd like to see that level of control over the internet to stop. And what I mean by that is I'd like to see government stop trying to kind of clandestinely and quietly control the internet when they don't have a ministry of truth, having FBI effectively make itself the ministry of truth. But I know people like Rand Paul want to do that, and I know he has allies that want to do that, but I think for others, they have other agendas. I don't quite understand why it's hard to have this idea of Congress shall make no law affecting free speech. I'm not saying they can't outlaw a ministry of truth. They can do that, but what they can't do is create a ministry of truth, either back door or front door. And I'd like to see that happen, but I'm worried that the slim majority, there's too many stupid Republicans, kind of rhino types, that would go the other way.
Yeah.
And it'd be a lot nicer if we had a very, very strong, healthy majority, so that when the 10 guys that were morons wanted to slip off to the other side, it wouldn't matter. We wouldn't need their vote. We could tell them to go to hell.
Right. Bill.
Yeah, I agree with that, George. Hey, by the way, George, I wanted to let you know I visited your webpage. You really got a fantastic webpage. Boy, there's a lot of content on there. Well done.
Thank you.
You know, the sucker bucks and the rest of these clowns, when they get sued for $100 million, maybe they'll start changing their ways. Government isn't going to do anything. They're not going to change anything. Only money talks, and these people will start walking. So let me get slapped with a couple of lawsuits. But back to the lawsuit against Musk. Remember, this is brought up by a guy who owned 9 shares. 9 shares. He didn't like the package. 9 shares he owned. But really a pathetic case in his face. But really beyond because the judge didn't just arbitrarily, I'm going to take on Elon Musk. He had this clown who brought the case before the judge. He heard it and he adjudicated. But it's really about class warfare. And, this is a problem that's not going to be solved overnight, because you have people that despise wealthy people in general. And then when you get a guy like Elon Musk, who's protecting free speech and all of the things he's doing, so he's really made himself an enemy to the left. They're really going to come after him with both barrels. So it goes to 2 things. Number one, it's about class warfare, and it's another part about the people who they just don't like because they're not pushing their narrative. If it was Bill Gates or any of these other globalists who are pushing an agenda, maybe they wouldn't be pushing and hating the fact that the guy got 50. And it's over 50 billion what the package was. 50 billion. And he had to perform.
Yeah, that's what I said.
It wasn't just say we're going to give 50 billion. He had to
Right.
meet certain gates. And they weren't easy gates. They weren't impossible, but
Right.
they weren't easy. They gave him incentive, and he did it.
And that's why it's such a big deal, because the amount of money that was involved. I mean, it would be a different conversation if it was in the millions. But even in the millions. I mean, obviously, but it wouldn't be this kind of level of crazy
that amount of money
headlines.
Because of who Elon Musk is, because of his vision, because of the company that he created. It wasn't just like, hey, give me $50 billion. I think I'd say no.
Right.
He had these gates and he met them all.
Right. Look at where Tesla was in revenue when he made that deal, and look at where it is today. I don't know the exact numbers of where it was, but this deal was made several years ago when Tesla was still up and coming. And Elon Musk prevailed, and he worked his ass off, and he should be rewarded. He did his task.
It end of the bargain.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody else could have done that. I mean, he was probably the only guy that could do that for that company.
Right. Right. And people try. Right.
Hey, anyway, I wanted to get in there, and what I wanted to say was, what I remember when I was very young and I incorporated, people said, hey, incorporate in Delaware. That's the haven for corporations. Everybody wanted to incorporate in Delaware. Now we got one radical fanatic judge that's after Musk, but who knows how many more there are, but apparently Delaware is not the safe haven for incorporating your business anymore. But as far as these congressional hearings, I think it was Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana said he's been there 7 years, and it's the same. They say the same thing every year. And if you go back, every year it's the same thing. They drag these guys up. The Republicans, if they got control of the House, they're asking all these questions. We demand a yes or no. And then the Democrats get up there and they give a 5 or 7 minute speech on how wonderful the person is. And so, nothing ever happens. Nothing ever gets done. Everybody eventually goes home and they forget about it for another year until they come back and say the same know nothings, do nothings. We ain't going to do anything except be on TV for a day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. It's yeah. There's never any long-term, legitimate, sufficient solution ever. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Mark and Bill and George, everybody's been on point. It, it's chaos. It's created to be that way. I got to kind of just observe a lot of things this week and just talk to people. There's a lot of silent majority out there that they're losing hope. They love this republic. They love God. And they're just hardworking, everyday people. And they kind of got in this little. They want to secure the border. People driving along. Some people trucks, cars. People who just patriots who love this place and just want to do what's right, take care of their community, have a wife and kids and family and friends and but the whole system that everybody talks about all the time, everything is about destroying that and people see it. I think they don't know what to do but everybody's like, oh, I'm just one person. I go, you know what though? If everybody stopped saying that and we all actually did something, whether it doesn't have to be you have to go to war, but it could be whatever your God is giving you your talent to help in this time. We all do it. We got it the good time, the good people, all of us, we got to band together. We got to fight this evil, demonic filth, corruption. It's you don't understand how sick and evil it is because your mind can't go there. But that is what we are fighting. You have to really dig deep, and we all need to step up, man. We need the fellas. I've been, all the guys have been like like a lot of my guys. Let's go, the men. We got to lead. Let's go. It's time, man. We got to lead, but allow God to guide us spiritually first, and then lead that way, not with ego. Don't lead with pride and all that, but lead with the Spirit.
Yeah, no, agreed. I want to bring this up. I want to bring up a new article, a new headline. Voters face significant threat from wave of AI-generated fraud as experts race to stop election interference. After a robocall targeted New Hampshire residents with a fraudulent phone call from President Biden, experts are warning that voters may be confused with content generated by artificial intelligence with the potential to interfere with the 2024 primary and presidential elections. While threat actors are using AI to overcome existing security measures and make attacks bigger, faster, and more covert, researchers are now leveraging AI tools to create new defensive capabilities. But Optiv Vice President of Cyber Risk Strategy and Board Relations, James Turgle, told Fox News Digital, make no mistake, generative AI poses a significant threat, he says. Quote unquote, I believe the greatest impact could be AI's capacity to disrupt the security of party election offices, volunteers, and state election systems, he said. Turgle, who's a former FBI veteran, noted that a threat actor's goals can include changing vote totals, undermining confidence in electoral outcomes, or inciting violence. Even worse, they can now do so on a massive scale. I've been talking about this for years, how AI is going to be in all of our lives, including our elections. This is not a surprise. This is the future. And I really don't think anything can be done about it. I don't care how many regulations, I don't care how many laws you put into place. These machines are so advanced and so evolved, and the people creating these machines are not slowing down. They're continuing the fast pace of building these products, which means sooner or later, and Elon Musk has talked about this, and so have many others, that these machines are going to outsmart, outwork all of these humans and are going to be so far ahead of us that nothing we do with regulations is going to be able to stop them. This is scary stuff, and I don't think enough people are paying attention. They think AI. I think a lot of people just think AI is this hot topic, and it's fun to talk about, and things are never going to really get to a scary level, but they are. They really are. I mean, when you have technology going at this pace and you have all these new products coming out and all these scientists and these researchers coming up with new things, yeah, I mean,
I've seen the Terminator, Rory.
Yeah. Yeah, Greg, I'm sure this concerns you. I mean, AI.
Well, I mean,
think about what you can do with AI. You can do anything at this point. You can mimic voices. You can take a photo of yourself and make it look identical to you. I mean, you can deep fake people in a video to make it look like it's their face. It's crazy.
Well, it's a new iteration of the internet. Many good things, a huge amount of bad things. The potential for AI to enhance life for millions, billions of people is profound. It can streamline production. It can make operations 100 times more efficient. It can do work in a thousandth of the amount of time it would take just humans to do it. It can design, it can write, it can do so many things that, companies spend millions of dollars employing people to do. So it does have tremendous benefit. I do think, though, that it all comes back to individuals and doing your homework. I do see that there's going to be we saw it with the Biden calls, and there's a lot of potential for fraud in that. But I think that if the government gets involved in it too much, it's just going to make it worse, because I think the markets and people are going to, if Donald Trump knows there's a fake ad out there that's making him look unfavorable, he's going to come out very quickly and try to counter it. As long as the markets are allowed to operate freely, I think that it will separate the wheat from the chaff. But there's always the danger. I mean, that is the problem with technology. In the 90s, where you can go to this main search engine and just tying all of these companies together in one search, the sky's the limit. And the same thing with AI. I think there'll be a lot of good things it will do. There's going to be a tremendous amount of bad things. And, it all comes down to, we can continue to chase the symptoms. It's like a really bad cold virus, all of the symptoms, from the runny nose and the coughing and all these things. You could try to fix each one, but you really got to get to the virus. And if you could just kill the virus, all of those ugly symptoms would go away. And the virus in America is the breakdown of the traditional family, the complete rewriting of history, the basically wholesale dilution of traditional family values and Christian values in this country. I mean, we obliterated what America stood for and the kind of morals that we taught our children. And if we have to go back to that, otherwise we're just chasing a bunch of symptoms. And I don't see us going back to the traditional America anytime soon.
Does the good outweigh the bad? Or does the bad outweigh the good with this AI?
Well, in a nation that has the three indispensable supports intact, which is freedom, virtue, and faith, it's good. But in a nation where all three of those indispensable supports have been utterly obliterated, it's going to be bad.
Well, you just brought up an interesting point. If you have robots and machines taking over, wouldn't it more than likely get obliterated?
No, I'm just saying that, people in general,
wouldn't these? What I mean was, let me elaborate. Let me expand. Let me elaborate. With the way these machines are programmed, with the way their ideology is directed, with what they're supposed to do and how they're operated. Do you see where I'm going? Do you see where I'm going with this? You talk about fundamental change, and when you have technology that can be programmed to do certain things, that makes me think that, the bad that factors in, part of that will be getting rid of the family, getting rid of, religion. Like, do you see where I'm going with this?
It's not this nebulous AI. The programmers are the ones who lack a vision for freedom, who lack virtue, and who lack faith in a creator, a being that they have to answer to, a moral lawgiver. These are the people that are programming these things, these programs that are going to do the kind of things, the nefarious objectives and agenda that you're talking about. But that's what I'm talking about. If the people who are developing all of this are people who stand firm on freedom, virtue, and faith, then you could say, well, it's going to have a good impact on society. But certainly these people are not, the norm. maybe the exception, but the norm is people who really want to destroy freedoms, ultimately control people. These are most invirtuous people that we've ever had in the history of this country. And these are people that hate even talking about the existence of God. So I see that the impact the AI will have overall, I think will have a negative impact, just because I know the people that are writing and part of these, putting these things into place, are wicked, evil people. Many of them, if not most.
And I know we often laugh about it and we find it funny. These headlines of these AI women that are so real looking, and you have men that are paying massive subscription fees to be in relationships with these machines, to have certain video sex with these machines. I mean, it goes on and on. So anywhere you're imagining, you get it. I mean, it's sad, but there's so many situations like this, and I think it's only going to get worse, where you already have people addicted to their phones. You already have people addicted to video games. You already have people addicted to porn. Now you're going to have people addicted to AI women that basically look real.
No, that's why I say it's an extension. It's a new version of what the internet has done.
Hey,
We talk about the internet, but
may I ask you guys a question on that? The kid cartoons, doesn't that kind of
there's millions, and I read reports, and the world's very big. Obviously, there's billions of people in the world. So, I mean, what I'm about to say is somewhat hard to believe, but at the same time, it's not, and I don't think it's that surprising.
You're talking about like
according to new reports, there are a few million men worldwide that are paying these AI subscription fees for these women that look basically like real human beings. And they're giving them anything they want, romance.
Do they know they're
sexual
AI?
attention. What?
Do they know they're AI generated?
A lot. From what I read, yes. There's services where these men, whether they're gamers, whatever they are, a lot of these men that are paying for this stuff are geeky type of men that love the technology stuff. So, and it's also a lot of men that are lonely and probably introverted.
Don't they have those old 1-900 numbers for that? At least you get a real person.
It's just crazy, man. It's crazy stuff, and people having sex with robots now. I mean, I'm reading some crazy stuff. I don't know. I mean, you have all these people identifying as different things. I just don't know.
The world's gone mad, man.
I don't even recognize this universe anymore. I don't know. What does Bill think about all this madness?
Well, if you go back to 1967, there was a new show came out on NBC called Star Trek, and that took us about 400 or 500 years into the future. And at that time, no one had jobs, no one had there was no such thing as currency. Everybody just kind of went along. And if you were lucky enough to be on the crew of the Enterprise or something like that, you could have a replicator make your food for you and everything. So maybe that was a glimpse into the future. Maybe that's what we're going to have. Maybe 50 years from now, maybe 30 years from now, 100 years from now. But is the world really going in that direction where, in a sense, we're destroying humanity and humankind, and we're going to be so reliant on machines that I don't know. And I hear what Greg's saying, and hopefully there's some way, and this may cause the war of the machines, that we actually have some of the AI is actually pro humanity, pro God, pro decency, etc. Instead of thinking that everything that AI has to do with is going to be, something that's evil or so stark that it won't even be recognized as human anymore. It'll be like we're all machines.
Right, and you brought up the robot aspect of things with where we're headed and all these different areas of life and civilization, with robots taking over the workforce, with robots, becoming, involved in romantic relationships with different people. Could we see robots in the future having their own tax system, having life like a human being, them doing everything human beings do, like, people going down the altar with robots? I mean, they're already talking about police officers that are going to be robots, hospital workers that are going to be robots, doctors that are going to be robots. So guys, give me an idea what this is going to look like. This just blows my mind.
Watch Star Trek.
Hey, yeah, you mentioned Star Trek, and this is since you mentioned that, I figured I would pull out my communicator that I actually would have loved as a kid. Bill, I bought this thing, and it actually connects to my phone, and I could use it Bluetooth. And it's got some.
Awesome.
So yeah, Star Trek. We're already there, Bill. We're already at Star Trek. But I will tell you, it wouldn't surprise me that as technology is advancing and the realism, with these fake women, and I read an article where it's a big deal in Japan, where they actually go in
and think about all the artificial vaginas and all the artificial breasts and all the artificial dicks that they can create now in these doctors' offices. So when you have these robots, I mean, they're already doing stuff with trannies. I think robots could be a thing in the future with. Go ahead, though. Continue, Greg.
Well, I think that if they get real, yeah, I could absolutely see some pathetic individuals that would spend money to have these kind of things. I mean, they already make them. I don't know how real they are, but they already have them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So, as they get more and more real, I mean, what are they going to look like 10 years from now, 20 years? I'm sure they're going to be a lot more real. I'm sure they're going to be able to carry on conversations. I mean, you already have these robots that can carry on conversations. You just put like some kind of a flesh-like material over them, and now it moves and talks. So, I mean,
do you guys remember Rocky IV, Greg? You remember Rocky IV where he had the robot?
Great movie.
Robot? Or no, Rocky III. He had the robot.
What was that, the one with Mr. T?
Yeah, he had the robot.
Yeah, that was a great one. Yeah, I love that one.
Those were like the prototypes, man. That's what you're kind of seeing.
Yeah, but I'm talking about making them look like real, like that woman.
No, I'm saying it's more advanced now. That was a long time ago.
What's the girl's name? Lexi Love. So
yeah.
What guy wouldn't buy that if she could look like that in real life?
Yeah.
Buy that and hide it under his bed.
Oh yeah. You guys got to look her up. Lexi Love. She looks real, and she's an AI robot that men are paying giant amounts of money for every month.
Who gets that money then?
The company that made created her.
Who wrote the program?
Yeah, the guy that built her, the engineer.
Wow.
Pretty impressive stuff. I want to talk about this Texas thing. This is madness. They're really taking matters into their own hands. I mean, this could really be. This could get interesting.
And the Patriots as well.
DeSantis is deploying Florida State Guard to Texas. And a move to secure the border. What were you saying, Brian?
My apologies. I thought you were done. And so are the American Patriots. I was just actually on the truck convoy. People started in Virginia, worked their way all the way down to Springs, part of Texas. They weren't able to go in, but I left in the middle of it, and I got to experience some great people. A lot of patriots all around the country are just wanting to secure our border. They're looking to do whatever they can, support however. Patriots showed up with just water and just, hugs. And it was a great community buildup around our nation and our republic and our communities, just to know that there's people out there all over. They really want to take care of our border. They see it, how the invasion is going on. They know our border is wide open. Border Control is not able to do anything about it. They're not able to enforce any laws. And
well, I'll tell you, it's working. Eagle Pass is going down to more like a trickle instead of the hundreds and hundreds, and they're starting to cross in California now instead of Texas. So it's working.
Arizona as well, Greg. Arizona as well. It's getting bad over there, and like you guys mentioned, until President Trump gets in, I agree. I just don't know how. I mean, how do we make it that far? That's a year.
We'll make it. We'll make it. We'll just do irreparable damage.
30,000 coming across a month.
We'll just do irreparable damage. That's all. I mean,
Yeah.
this just we're not gonna cease to become America in the next 8 months, 10 months, but we're going to do serious damage, long-term damage to our economic future. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
just
then
look at
about
the
the
disgrace. You have the guys, those Venezuelan illegals beating up the cop in New York, then getting let out without bail, flipping a finger to the media, and four of them got on a bus with fake names and got the hell out of Dodge in California.
Yep. And then you see Joe Biden made it about himself when with the family, the three Marines, I believe they were out of Georgia that were just killed recently as well. The families were just sad that we just lost 3 soldiers, and 2 Navy SEALs as well died about 2 weeks ago. And this administration always makes it about themselves, and it's disgusting.
Hey, at least he didn't look at his watch this time.
Yeah. Well, how did we know though? He was on the phone, right? I mean,
Says a breaking report right here. Capitol Police won't charge the 2 men in the Senate gay porn scandal that occurred a few months ago.
yeah.
Of course,
Well,
double standard, and I've always said the double standard.
Rules
Yeah,
for the even.
I wonder what
the
their charge would be. What are you going to charge them with? I mean, it's not
insurrection.
Well, let me see what
Insurrection.
the 2 men who filmed and appeared in a gay porn video in a Senate hearing chamber seem to have dodged legal repercussions. U.S. Capitol Police announced Thursday they found no evidence that a crime was committed and will not bring charges against the 2 men.
So what did the crimes that they said J6ers did that these guys committed insurrection? They were inserting things in their bodies that don't belong inside a Senate building that you shouldn't be. And so how are they not being charged?
That's kind of a stretch. I don't know that there are any laws that they broke by 2 consenting sodomites sodomizing each other.
But what did the J6ers do to break the law then?
Well, you can't enter the Capitol without permission.
They own it. We own it.
No,
Whose
I'm
permission?
sorry, that doesn't fly. You still can't go in there without proper permission.
Well, they were being waved in.
We own it all. We own the White House too. We
They were
can't just
being
go bust
welcomed
the
in,
window
though.
and climb in the White House.
You could see police waving them in, though.
Well, I mean, whatever. But I'm just saying
they were welcomed in.
You can't use the argument. We own it. I'm sorry.
Okay, we were welcomed in. People were welcomed in. They were being.
I don't know.
waved in
I saw
by
dudes
police.
with chairs smashing in windows. So I don't know who they were, but I did see people doing that. So, destruction of public property. I mean,
Economic news. Half of U.S. tenants can't afford to pay their rent, according to CNN Business. And other economic news, oil down to $3. Very interesting.
down $3.
Down $3. That's
It
what
was
I meant.
down to $3 under Trump. Actually went to
No,
like
down $3. No,
Negative 40 cents.
that's what the headline says. You're right, Mark. Oil down $3.
No, I know.
What's the closing cost on oil barrel?
I'm just reading the
It's
headlines
in the
on the
80s.
news.
I think it's in the 80s still, though.
Yeah,
But God, that's horrible. Half of U.S. tenants can't afford to pay their rent. I mean, I don't think we've ever been this bad as a country. Wow, man. Oof. There's going to be a record number of homeless.
Yep.
There already is. There already is. But just imagine when everything really hits the fan.
You will own nothing and be
74.
happy.
WTI is 74.
36% of Americans say they have amassed more credit card debts than emergency savings. It's at an all-time high.
Of course, but the economy's doing great. We're doing great.
Oh
average interest rates 22% and climbing. We're doing great.
And the regional bank stocks that are crashing.
Yes, that's huge, Rory.
Yeah.
Well, you know why that is? Because March is coming, and they don't have the assets. They can't pay the loans back.
And what's this new news that just came out? Car lots are going to be filling up again. New car day supply has started the year at the highest level since 2020. All else being equal, except more discounts and rebates on the horizon from most brands. Expect more discounts and rebates on the horizon. Wow, what do you think?
Yeah, what a turnaround from 2 years ago, when used cars were more expensive than new ones, and you had to wait months. But who's going to buy these cars? Yeah, who's going to buy them? I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
they
it's
have
all about
computers.
personal debt, household debts in the, 5, 6, $7 trillion when you put in student loans, car loans, hell, mortgages. I think it's in the double digits and trillions. So people are just kicking the can. They're just kind of holding on right now. And what's going to break the final straw will be the layoffs, which have been coming and are coming more. There's more and more
Yep.
layoffs right now.
PayPal, right? Greg, Merck, didn't
Yeah.
PayPal have some?
So many big companies. PayPal is one of the many big companies that have laid off.
UPS is going to what over
Oh,
12,000?
UPS. Yeah. UPS.
Oh, yeah.
And these are good jobs. You have to understand, UPS.
12,000 people.
Service,
UPS, 12,000 people.
yeah, these are not service industry, minimum wage jobs. UPS, they pay well. And if you're talking about the truckers, the drivers, they make a lot of money. I mean, these people make 60, 80, 100, 120,000. They're high paying jobs. Even if you're loading packages in the back of the truck, you're talking $20 an hour. These are good jobs, good paying jobs. And they're going away. That's going to be the catalyst that kind of accelerates really, I think, what's going to be worse than a recession. But we just have too much debt. Corporate debt, approaching 20 trillion, household debt, national debt, and you compound that problem with interest rates that are at all-time highs in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and it says here institutional clients sold more than $5 billion worth of equities last week, the most since 2015 and second highest since the global financial crisis, according to data from the Bank of America.
Wow.
Well, because
doesn't sound like much.
Well, but the reason is because the Federal Reserve has not been taking their dovish stance anymore. They went a little hawkish. They took rate cuts off the table in March.
And now it says here, this is really troubling financial news. U.S. Treasury confirms spending on debt interest now larger than entire defense budget and will soon surpass the entire Social Security budget.
Yeah, this year will be $1 trillion. And this is what I said, last year. I said we're going to be looking at $1 trillion this year. Now, you compare that to 2 years ago, it was 400 billion. It's going to be $1 trillion, and it's going to go up exponentially because you're going to get this debt service spiral, debt to service spiral. The debt is going to grow up exponentially, which means the service on that debt is going to go up. Then you got the service going up to pay for the interest. You got to raise the deficit spending is going to get even higher, and as you get a higher deficit, higher debt means so it's this spiral. As the debt grows, the service is going to grow, and we can't pay the service, so we're going to have to increase deficit spending more, which makes the debt grow. And it's just this ugly, vicious cycle, unsustainable forever. You don't know when it's going to break, but it just can't keep blowing up forever. It just can't.
Right. And it says here,
I think that by 2030, we're talking $2.5 trillion just to pay the interest.
And I want
unless the Federal Reserve goes and reduces interest rates back down to 1% and below.
Yeah, and it says here Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates have confirmed they are joining the BRICS bloc. So that's more big news. And Greg, we've talked about this a long time, how the more powerful they get, the worse the news is for the United States.
Yeah, and it's small potatoes right now, but there are some UAE is doing some deals in their digital currency. I want to say it's $28 billion in some oil deals, but it's small potatoes now. But it's not good news for the U.S. dollar and dollar dominance. It just isn't. I don't care if it was 28 million. It's not good news. It's an alternative to the U.S. dollar that people are seeking, and it's only going to gain traction and be a bigger problem for the U.S. dollar.
Yeah, Bill, you have any thoughts?
Ultimately, though, unfortunately, it will cause a lot of pain, a lot of austerity, but it might be the best thing for us. I mean, you think about it.
I agree.
The fact that we have this dollar that goes all over the world and we're off any kind of standard, we've been spending into oblivion because as long as it's like a person who just keeps going to the bank and getting more money. The best thing the banks could do is say, no, you're not getting any more money. It might hurt the guy and he might go bankrupt, but maybe he can live to, pick up the scraps and try again. The fact that everybody buys our U.S. treasuries is not a good thing. It's just not a good thing. because it just means we just finance more massive deficit spending. So eventually, the world, which is our bank, is not going to lend us any more money. And I suppose the Federal Reserve will just, do like AOC and the other clown said and mint a couple.
So, Rory, then what happens with
Star Trek
digital currency? Does eventually digital currency supplant our currency, which paper money is really our coins? They're not really in existence anymore either. I mean, everything we do is pretty much digital. I get my Social Security check direct deposit in my account. I go out and I buy lunch. I pay for a credit card, and I pay my credit card off with the money in my bank that I got from the Social Security Administration direct deposit. So there's no cash. It's just I'm just moving money around from one place to another. So what's the difference?
Digital currency is very different in that everything you'll do is on a blockchain, which means the government can look at every single. Now the government knows every time they pay you on the first of the month, but they don't know how you use all those funds. Now there are ways that they can, but if you go to a street corner and you want to buy a box of cigars, you buy a box of cigars. If you want to put gas in your truck, they're going to know you put gas in your truck, and they're going to be in control. You know what? Maybe they don't like that you're using too much gas, so that they're going to scale back your ability to buy things. Digital currency is the single greatest threat to American freedom in the history of this country, because they will know every single purchase that you.
Yeah. Do you?
Complete. Make no mistake. They will force you to do what they want you to do. That means if you're buying beef, beef's bad for the environment. Spending too much on beef, you don't get to spend it on beef. All of these things, attacks on our freedom that will happen when they institute this digital currency, and we're forced to comply with it. It's a huge danger to mankind, most certainly a danger to American freedom.
So, Greg, I take it you don't have any digital currency?
Well, I do, but only because I think that, like anything, a few dollars in something that I think could explode. Kind of like I don't go to Vegas, but you go to Vegas if you're smart, you might gamble only amount you could lose. But right. I do think that there are certain cryptos that are kind of a good bet. One of them that I think is Ripple. It's the XRP ledger, and the reason why I like that is because it is a quote replacement or an alternative to the whole SWIFT international money movement thing. So will it pop? You know what? I don't know. But you know what? 10, 20,000 ripples is not a ton of money, especially where it's trading now on 50 cents. And hey, if the thing has the potential, I mean, just look at it was Solo. One of them was like a penny. And I said, look, I don't tell anybody to go to crypto, but there are certain ones that I would say, do your homework. If it has a real world application, which I don't believe Bitcoin does, because Bitcoin can just be shut down. But
Greg, what about Ethereum? ETH.
Yeah, Ethereum somewhat. But I'm talking, when I look at the whole community in the world, the global financial communities, and I see what the United States is doing with sanctions, I look at countries like China and Russia and a lot of our enemies in the Middle East. They may say, hey, we'll just transfer our money on the XRP ledger. If these kind of things happen, also if XRP goes into a fund, exchange fund, maybe that will boost prices. So, in that regard, I own a little bit of crypto XRP, but otherwise, I'm not a big fan. But unfortunately, the blockchain technology is here to stay, and one day central banks are all going to adapt it, and we're all going to be on that system.
Well, this is really interesting.
It'll be central banks.
This is really interesting that you two guys are talking about XRP. XRP is right now is at 50.6 cents a unit. I own about 1,600 shares. My son and I, we've been kind of screwing around, throwing a little money in here and there. They bought some at a quarter a share. I bought some, various prices. Anyway, I think I got 1,600 shares. It's worth around $1,000 right now. And it's money that we just thought, hell, we'll just throw it in and see what happens. And maybe someday, if it gets up to 10,000 a unit, we'll be millionaires and we can do whatever we want to do. But
amen, brother. Amen.
I don't know if that'll ever happen. If it ever gets up to $5, maybe we'll be lucky.
Hey, you never know.
Well, but the potential for it is there because what it can do.
Yep.
I mean, Bitcoin takes enormous energy. What people don't realize, I mean, there are giant warehouses full of computers to allow for the exchange of Bitcoin. The processing power is an enormous drain, so it's hardly the green alternative. Now, XRP settles in fractions of a second. Thousands and thousands of transactions can go in a second. Bitcoin can't do that. So the transaction cost, the transaction energy, and the transaction time is very, very small for XRP compared to others. And it is a way for countries or individuals to move massive amounts of money overseas without the United States ever seeing it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, just in the time that we talked Bitcoin, I mean, XRP went from 50.6 to 50.62. You can sit there and watch their webpage. It's like you just watch the numbers going up and down.
Yeah.
You're right. It's amazing how it works. And so I kind of keep track of it. I got a spreadsheet where I keep track of all my investments and on a weekly basis. And that's one of them I got in there. 1,600 shares in my Excel spreadsheet times whatever it happens to be, and I'll type it in, and it changes before I even get a chance to hit enter on the Excel spreadsheet.
Hey, Bill, did you? Supposedly they told me to get like one of those little digital
Wallets.
like thing to save it on because
Wallets. It's a wallet.
yes, wallet. Thank you, Greg. I'm not tech savvy, but I had someone help me do that. My cousin actually, and it's crazy process. You have to like type in a word for each little thing and save it. So now if you buy more, you always got to put it in there. And I'm like, holy cow. So
Yeah, you got a wallet icon on your phone, don't you?
probably.
You should have one. You should have one on there.
Yeah, you got to put your boarding passes, everything in there.
Well, I don't.
Guys, we're going to close out. Bill, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can get involved.
Hey, I'm on every day of the week, Monday through Friday. I'm on Facebook Live at 11 o'clock, and I'm even on Twitter, I guess. And I have a webpage, 2020, americabook.com.
Awesome. Brian.
Hey, you can find me. This is where you find me, NexGen Live, Censorless TV. I do have my YouTube channel that I'm trying to build up along with it. So, I'm banned on Twitter, so don't look for me there. I'm just working on trying to bring you real stories, real emotions of what people are thinking, traveling on different areas, talking to people. So I'm not on all the time. I want to give good quality, but still doing the sports show, but trying to build that. Hopefully Rory and anybody else in this panel would love to do that. Let's get it done. Super Bowl coming up next weekend.
Go Taylor Swift.
Who you go for?
Go Taylor Swift.
Oh, gee, yeah, whatever. She's winning. She's winning already. But no, and I really love being on here with you guys. This is a pleasure. Greg and George and Bill, they all say the stuff that a lot of people believe. I know I believe, and they articulate it well, better than I do. Anyway, and it's great to just learn we're all standing together. There's a lot of people out there that believe, and I really believe there's hope, and I really believe we have the ability to help save this world soul wise, like as far as bringing them, giving their lives over to Jesus and saving this constitutional republic. There's a lot of people that love this nation. They love the principles, and they feel like it's been taken away, and they're feeling hopeless, but they have that hope. They have that little bit of hope still. And they love that there's people like us who are out here saying it, believing it, doing it, trying to just build it up and let people know it's time to stand tall. It's time to unite under God. And like the Pledge of Allegiance says, it's all in the pledge. It really is. And, we all make mistakes. We're going to fail, but it's about picking each other up, standing strong, holding ourselves accountable, holding people accountable as well. Accountability, get rid of the entitlement, and nobody deserves anything. It's about what you earn and what you put in. There's a generation that's never been taught this stuff. It's about changing generational principles. And, our president even said it, you're always one generation away from extinction. And you know, who knows? But we got to start getting natural families together, making babies, because eventually the transgenders and the gays and all that, they're going to end up depopulating because they can't produce. So we just have to be the front lines of the battle for the next 50 years or 60 years, whatever it might be, and stand tall, and they'll be depopulated, and all of us people who just believe in God and our republic and our family values and just want to build our community and our local farms and trade and have free and fair trade, our principles, you know, we'll still be here standing tall in the end, because God wins in the end. Don't forget that. And so we just still have to battle, hold that front line, and man, keep it up. This is fun.
Greg.
You find me on Facebook, X, and on the Next Gen.
Excellent.
Oh yeah, that was closing. Sorry about that.
Well, everybody, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. It's been a fantastic episode. Another Next Gen Live in the books. We will see you all very soon. Have a great weekend. Until next time, I'm Rory Sauter. God bless.